So what is this? I've been concerned for quite a while now about rising levels of depression and suicide in the United States, especially among young people. According to Gallup's 2025 data, about 18% of people have depression. Now this is up from 10% in 2015 and up from 5% in 2005. So a threefold increase in 25 years. Clearly, something is wrong. Now, I actually know quite a bit about depression and how to treat it. When you want to learn about how to treat depression, there are all these sorts of schools of thought that you can read about, right? You've got the behavioral school, the cognitive school, the psychodynamic school, the humanist school, etc., etc. But these are more like different languages than different skill sets. They're kind of all saying the same thing, just using different psychological jargon and emphasizing a different part of the human experience. But what all these schools have in common is an underlying assumption about the person being treated for depression. The assumption is that there is something wrong with the patient. But what if it's not the patient who is sick? What if the patient's depression is just a normal reaction to a hostile environment? If I'm the therapist, then there's nothing for me to fix, there's nothing for me to treat. You don't need insight, you don't need a new skill set, what you need is a better environment. So what's wrong with the environment? How is it so different now compared to what it was like in 2005 when rates of depression were around 5%? I've been thinking about this for about 10 years now, and the conclusion I've come to is that the economic environment has become too hostile. For many young Americans, the math just doesn't add up anymore. Even with full-time work, basic expenses now exceed take-home pay. Check this out. I've broken down the financial situation of the average young adult in the United States in 2025. I've cited my sources for all this data so you can confirm it yourself if you think that I'm exaggerating. The median salary for young adults with a high school diploma is $38,000 a year. After taxes, this comes out to about $2,600 a month in take-home pay. Now take a look at the list of liabilities. These are things that the average person can't really avoid paying for. If you add all these things up, you get a little over $3,600 a month in liabilities. Without saving any money or spending anything on recreation, the average person is already underwater by $1,000 a month. I have another example using the median salary for young adults with a college degree. The income is notably higher at $63,000 a year, but this person also has an additional $1,000 a month in liabilities because of service on their student loan debt. Liabilities minus income, this is advanced math, you're still underwater by $500 a month. So this, I submit to you, is the primary reason for the increase in depression in the United States. Life is objectively harder now than it was 25 years ago. And life 25 years ago was harder than life was 50 years ago. And it's going to keep getting harder. And living standards are going to continue to fall, and more people are going to be depressed. What I don't want is for my kids and yours, for those of you who are fortunate enough to be able to afford to have kids, to grow up in a world where the deck is stacked against them. The US is rapidly becoming a society with no social mobility, where the only way the American dream can be realized is by being born into a wealthy family. So why is this happening? How did things get to be so bad? Well, it's kind of impossible to explain it quickly. So the thought I was having about this was that I could do it kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie, where I'll tell you why this is happening, and then in future videos I'll sort of rewind it back and explain how all the dominoes fall and how we get from point A to collapsing living standards and a mental health epidemic. The answer is not very glamorous. The problem is US tax policy. Ever since the 1980s, the US has embraced regressive tax policies that extract resources from the poor and the working class and then redistribute those resources to the wealthy elite. If we continue on this path, the pressures that are driving people into despair are only going to increase. There are lots of ways to structure taxes fairly, but any sustainable solution has to move resources back into circulation into the bottom half of the economy. That's not an ideological point, that's just the math of the situation. And encouragingly, versions of these ideas already have broad bipartisan support. So if you care at all about the growing mental health epidemic, then stick with me and I'll break all of this down for you in future videos. And for anyone out there who is dealing with depression because of their economic situation, know that you are not alone. You are one of about 150 million adults in the US for whom the math doesn't work anymore. Depression isn't just a mental health crisis. It's a canary in the coal mine of our economy. It's telling us that something in the system is broken, and fixing this means collective action. Imagine what could happen if we were all on the same page about this and voted together to change it. That's all the time we have for our session today. I'll see you next week.